Hi everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Today we are going to make some shredded chicken nachos and some sourdough mini donuts with 3 different glazes. So let's start by prepping up our kind of seasonings for our shredded, dog just ran by chasing the cat, chicken for our nachos. So I'm gonna start. I have a small yellow onion here. I'm gonna use part of this for kind of some fajita veggies that are gonna go on top of our nachos. And then the rest is gonna go in our little sauce that we're kind of making for our shredded chicken that we're gonna marinate. So I'm gonna save half for my fajita veggies. And then this part, I'm just gonna give a kind of a small little dice on it because I want it to be nice and small. I don't want the onions to be too big in my little sauce. So I'm going to use my 3 3/4 saute pan for this because I like the lip on it, which will be great for sauteing up the shredded chicken. We're going to add in about a tablespoon of olive oil. And we're going to let these onions right here just start to saute up. I lost a little in here. Bring them back over there. And that way we can add our tomatoes in, but I do want them to start caramelizing first. So we're gonna let them sit here, do a little bit of mixing, and then we're gonna work on our dough for our donuts. Just wanna get a little bit of that onion flavor out because I don't want that in my donut at all. Okay, so we're just gonna do a basic vanilla sourdough discard donut, and then we're gonna do a couple different glazes to bring in some other flavors, but we'll just start with our base. So we're gonna use a 1/4 cup of melted butter, which is half a stick or 4 tablespoons. I'm gonna add this to our bowl. And then we are going to add in a 1/2 cup of sourdough discard. Add that in here. There we go. And then we're going to add in a cup of milk. So we're going to start with our wet ingredients first, then we'll mix in our sugars and baking powders, and then last our flour. So we're going to add a whole cup of milk. There we go. And then I'm going to give this a little mix up to really kind of incorporate those. Turn my onions down just a smidge since they are sauteing up well. Slide this right over here. And I'm going to give them a quick stir. These onions are going to be for the sauce base for our shredded chicken that we'll put over our nachos. So I want them to caramelize up because we'll add just a rich flavor to it. There we go. I'm going to have those saute over about a 3. It doesn't need to be super high. And then let's mix together our milk, our sourdough discard, and our butter right now for the base of our vanilla donuts. So we're going to mix this up well. And then I'm going to add in 2 eggs. So we've got 1 and 2. And then I'm going to add in 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And then we'll mix these up. So 1 and 2. So they're just going to be a really mild vanilla cake donut. So like an old-fashioned donut, not like a yeast donut where you get a good rise on them. These are going to be the old-fashioned cake donuts. Okay, we're mixing these up. We want to make sure we get all of those yolks mixed in. There we go. And just making sure, pop it up because you don't want any big yolky things running around. And now we're going to add in a 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. So they're going to be just mildly sweet donuts. They're not going to be overly sweet, but the glazes will add a nice little sweetness on the top without adding a lot of extra sugar. So let's mix in our 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. Give it a stir, let it start kind of dissolving in there. And then we're gonna add in 2 teaspoons of baking powder and a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. And these are gonna be our rising agents in here. So we'll get 1 and 2. And now we need about a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. So I'm just gonna use my half one, and then I'm just gonna fill it up about halfway. Now we're gonna add in about a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. There we go. We're gonna give this a nice little mix, and then last we're gonna mix in our flour. But I always like to do all of my mixing of my ingredients well before I add in the flour, so that it kind of will incorporate well, versus having to sift together the baking sodas, the flours, and the salts. Just takes that stuff out. Any big clumps you see, just kind of push them against. Those are gonna be some butter that will melt out once you start heating them up in our donut mold. So you don't have to worry about those as much. You just wanna make sure you don't have any clumps of baking powder or baking soda, because you don't wanna be biting into your finished product with a clump of that. Okay, and then we're gonna add in our flour, but we wanna be careful not to over mix with the flour, because we want a nice fluffy donut versus a stiff one. So we're gonna add in 1½ cups of flour. So we've got 1 cup here. And now we're gonna add in a 1/2 cup. We'll give that a nice stir to incorporate them. I'm gonna slide this over here. We'll give our onions a quick stir before we mix that up. We want them to get a nice kind of golden color on them. That's when we'll know we'll be ready to add in our tomatoes and some spices. Okay, let's mix in our 1½ cups of all-purpose flour. And we want to be careful not to overmix. This is why I kind of like to use just a spoon or like a rubber spatula, because a hand mixer is really easy to overmix. So you're just gonna mix it until all those big clumps of flour are gone, like where you don't see the white powdery. You still want a very chunky batter, because that's gonna give you the fluffiest, especially when you're using butter in baked goods. It's gonna be a thicker batter versus using an oil. So don't try to mix it until it's smooth. Just do a slide around, make sure I have no big clumps of flour. And this will be ready to go into our donut maker. Let me grab some spray here. I always like to spray, that one's my pan, because even though my donut maker is non-stick, the spray just helps keep it nice and golden. And we can get our first batch going here in just a second. Let me grab a spoon. I find it's easier to spoon them in with a metal spoon. So I've got my donut maker here preheated. If you don't have a donut maker, you can use a donut sheet and just bake them in the oven at 350 for about 12 to 15 minutes, depending on more if you have the big donuts versus the mini donut sheet. So we're gonna give these a little spray. Slide this a little bit closer here. And now we're going to kind of scoop in our donut mix. You want to make sure you don't overfill it too much. It's going to rise up. You know, we have that baking soda and that baking powder and the eggs in here, so they will puff up nicely. So a nice just kind of glob in here. You don't have to worry about getting it around the circle. The mold will pop through once you push it down, and it will cook all the way through and give you that nice little donut hole. Here we go. I'm gonna put our last little spoon in, and then I'm gonna shut my donut maker. This will be ready in about 2 to 3 minutes. It will steam up and cook both sides. So one thing that's nice about the mini donut maker is it cooks it pretty fast. Okay, let's get our tomatoes, some of our tomatoes chopped up in here and ready to go for our chicken. So I'm gonna use, I've got 2 plum tomatoes left, and then I'm gonna use a big vine ripe tomato. And this is just gonna make part of my sauce for my chicken to kind of, you know, sit in. So I'm just gonna dice these up. It doesn't have to be too big or, you know, too small, because I just want the main like skins cut up. But it doesn't have to be a small like dice for like a salsa. We'll do a smaller dice when we have our salsa here in just a second. Just cut off this last tip here, get that stem out. And then we're gonna add this to our onions that are sauteing over there. I'm gonna let it kind of reduce out, and then we'll add some spices.
You have a question? Are they like cake donuts?
Yes, so they're like the old-fashioned cake donuts. So they're gonna be more dense than a yeast donut, but they are lovely. They're a great way to have donuts really quick. Yeast donuts takes a lot longer. There we go, let's add in our tomatoes here. And turn up my skillet. We're gonna give this a nice little, let it cook for a little bit, reduce out some of those nice tomato juices in it, and then we'll add in some spices, and lastly, our rotisserie chicken that we have shredded up. Okay, let's get our frying pan here filled up with some oil. I'm gonna turn this on, and then I'm gonna go turn, I just realized I forgot to turn my oven on. I'm gonna put my air fryer on to 425 on my oven, because that's what we're gonna cook our nachos in for the last second. So let me give this a quick stir, and then I'm gonna set my air fryer to, and if you don't have an air fryer setting on your oven, you can use convection bake. Convection bake works really well. It helps blow the air around, so it gives you that hot air at 425, or you could do an original bake, you know, the regular bake at 450 for the last part of this. Okay, let's get, we've got our oil warming up here. We're gonna slice up our onions here. I'm gonna throw them in here so that they can start getting nice and golden brown for our nachos. I love to do like some little fajita nachos on them. And then we're gonna use, I've got some peppers that we're gonna throw in once the onions get a nice little kind of char on them. Pull this out. I've got my bell pepper here. Just gonna de-seed it and de-beard it. And then we'll slice it up. If you like a little bit of a kick, you could always throw in some poblanos. I wouldn't necessarily go jalapenos, because then that's gonna be really spicy, but more of a mild pepper would work well that has a little bit more spice to it. Just gonna do some thin strips on here. Again, I had some leftover veggies chopped up already, so we're gonna add those in here, just some more peppers. And then my other part of my pepper right here, I'm gonna save for my salsa, so I'm gonna do a quick little dice on it. And we're gonna put some of this is gonna go for our corn salsa, and part of it is gonna go for our tomato salsa that we'll top our nachos over with. So normally I would also make a guacamole, but I had no avocados today, unfortunately. So we're just gonna do a double salsa. Still delicious, but won't be extra today. Okay, we're gonna do a nice little small dice on our our bell peppers here. Nice and small, because my salsa, I don't want my peppers to be really huge. I like them to be more mild and smaller in there, so it's not like you're eating a whole pepper. And we're gonna split this up half between our two.
If you have a question, do you go live every day?
Every day that fits our schedule. You know, occasionally, you know, we have life that happens, sports and whatnot. But if I'm home cooking for my family, I just stream it. This is just what I cook for my family. So the bonus is that, you know, we stream it for you guys, because I'm not about to make extra food for nothing. Luckily, our lunch today is a lighter crew, because the girls are going out with their grandma shopping today. So, and then this night, we'll have a nice, it will just be my husband and I for dinner, because they'll be spending the night at my mom's house. So, nice little relaxing Saturday. Okay, we'll give this a nice stir. We're gonna let these char up. I'm gonna add in some spices, and then we're gonna work on our glazes because our first round of donuts should be ready in just a second. So let's add some spices into our tomatoes real quick. And then we're gonna make our first glaze. I've got some chipotle chili powder here. We're gonna add about a half a teaspoon. It's gonna have a bit of a kick, so you don't need too much. We're gonna add in some paprika, which will give this a nice red, rich color to it, but there's a very mild flavor to it, a very mild pepper, like a sweet pepper flavor to it. We're gonna put in about a teaspoon of this. There we go. Then I'm gonna use some good old taco seasoning. If I can open it, there we go. We're gonna put in about a teaspoon. Shake it about. And then about a teaspoon of garlic salt. Slide these over here. I'm going to give my tomatoes a good stir. This is going to create a slightly thicker paste in here. And then I'm going to add just a smidge of water so that it will season up, and then we'll be able to add our chicken in with some flavor.
I get a question. Are you gonna show them how to cook for two tonight?
I will. I'm gonna try. Cooking for two is my hard thing to do, so that is what we'll be doing. I think I've got made up some lovely sourdough last night, so I think I'm gonna make a sourdough like smash burger melt for dinner tonight, which hopefully is a little bit easier. It's like making grilled cheeses. That's an easier thing to do. Okay, we're gonna add in about a half a cup to a cup of water in here. We're gonna let this simmer on low. Our onions got a nice starting to char in, so I'm gonna add in my peppers real quick. And then let's look at our donuts, see how they were looking. Oh, almost done. Maybe about a minute or so longer, looking good. Give this a toss, I'm gonna turn it down. And then let's mix up our first glaze. Okay, our first glaze, we're just gonna do a basic lemon glaze. And grab a fork to mix this. So we're gonna use some lemon zest and some lemon juice. Let me grab my juice and my zester here. We can cut our lemon in half. This is gonna give a really nice bright flavor to our glaze. I love a good lemon glaze. And then we're gonna add, after we do the lemon juice and some powdered sugar, we're gonna add in some cream just to make it a little bit richer and not quite as tangy. There we go. And I'm just gonna zest I'm looking for about a teaspoon of lemon zest. The lemon zest is going to keep the zing, but luckily when you don't bake lemon juice, it stays really bright, so that will be lovely in this one.
You got a question? Is that a bundt cake on the counter behind you? The sourdough.
Oh no, that is just a bowl. That is my sourdough loaf, and then a big bowl of another sourdough. I have my my black pepper Parmesan loaf, and in the big bowl I have a regular sourdough loaf. This is the one we made with our starter last night. You know, we were doing our starter journey, and I baked it up last night. We're gonna pop a video out here, but look how beautiful with my starter that I created just last week. But I have a video coming out of this later today, and that will be posted on there, as well as using our starter recipe for it.
All the videos are out.
Oh, apparently all the videos are out. My husband posted them, so look at him. So this video is out of our baking our loaf of bread. So it turned out beautiful. It was the first loaf I made with that starter. I started about a week ago, and it is turning out great. Okay, there we've got about a tablespoon of lemon juice in here with some lemon zest. I'm going to start with a half a cup of powdered sugar. And we're going to give this a nice little mix here with my fork. And it should thin out pretty fast. The lemon juice really dissolves that pretty quickly. Now I'm gonna add in a little bit of cream to take the zing away. I don't add in the cream first because the lemon juice will curdle it. So I add it in after I've mixed in the sugar, and that will give me a nicer glaze. And then we're gonna add in a bit more powdered sugar, and then we'll pull out our next set of our donuts out here. So they should be ready. We're looking for kind of a nice golden color on it. There we go. So when you're making glazes, you want it to be about the consistency of glue. It's the best way I can describe it, for it to really stick on. There we go. So I've got my first set of glazes done. Let's pop these guys out. Beautiful. Let me grab a fork here. Those are our vanilla cake donuts ready to come out. So we've got our first round done. Okay, we're gonna let them sit for a second while we put our next batch in, because you want them to be hot when you glaze them, but not burning hot where you can't hold them, because we're gonna dip them in our glaze. So let's put in our next batch to start cooking. And this next batch will cook a lot faster now that my donut maker is really up and hot. You know, it's just like when you're cooking on a skillet, that first batch always takes a lot longer than the rest. Get a spoon out. And this is probably gonna make close to 20 mini donuts. It will make about a dozen of the big ones. Let's slide this down, let those cook. I'm gonna give my peppers here a quick turn. There we go. And then let's get these glazed, our first batch glazed. Give them a nice little thing. Now the best way to glaze your donuts is to just stick it in, really coat it, and while they're hot, that glaze is gonna ooze over the top of them and all the way around, and really coat it. And that's why I put it on a drying rack, like a cookie cooling rack, and then with a baking sheet underneath it to catch the drips. But it prevents it from getting super thick on there, so you don't have like a frosting coated, but it's really more of a delicate glaze. Here we go. So this is our lemon glaze on our first set of donuts. Just gorgeous. And you can see it's just dripping down. Okay, before we make our next glaze, I've got our sauce for our chicken is melting up here, so we're gonna add in our rotisserie chicken. And this is for our nachos. And I always like to let it stew here. So at Costco, you can just buy big, about 2.5 pound bags of rotisserie chicken, which I love to have on hand because you can just make so many things with it. You almost got lucky, dogs. You almost lost a piece of chicken to the ground. I just like to break it up into slightly smaller pieces. Sometimes you get really big chunks in here. And we're gonna stew it in this sauce, so it's gonna give it as if it was slow stewed and you worked all day on it, but really we spent less than 10 minutes on this. And we're not gonna use all of this chicken, we're just gonna use, I think this is a good amount for us for our chicken nachos. There we go. I'm gonna go give my hands a quick rinse. Okay, let's stir this up. I'm gonna bring it all the way down to down to 2, my really low number, and that way it can just slightly stew in the meat. But you can see it's not super soupy because with the nachos you don't want to have too much liquid on them. But we're just gonna coat them up. You could also use this to make just chicken tacos or, you know, even chicken like fajitas here. There we go. So now we're just gonna let it kind of simmer on low. Let's give these another toss. There we go. And now let's make our next glaze. We're gonna do a butterfly pea glaze with vanilla in it, so it will have a lovely blue flavor, but a vanilla taste to it. It's a fun powder. It's a freeze-dried like pea that you can use that gives great flavor, but hardly any taste. So we're gonna add in about a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And then we want about 2 tablespoons of heavy cream. There we go.
You have a question? Do you have any suggestions for an easy side or salad to take to a church barbecue?
I do. I make this delicious pasta salad that everybody raves about how much they love. I have a video of it. We made it around Memorial Day, but the whole video shows you. I actually made a 3-bean salad that day, a pasta salad, and my homemade potato salad. So if you check out that video, it has all the steps on how to make each one of those, and I will say all of them are great to go with a barbecue. We're gonna put in about a tablespoon of my butterfly pea. This is like a freeze-dried powder to this. And then we'll add in our powdered sugar. But this will just have a lovely blue flavor with a hint of floral notes to it. And it will be nice and sweet, but it will mainly taste like vanilla. Now, if I can mix it up without making a huge mess, that would be great. I'm gonna mix the butterfly pea into it first, and then we'll add in the powdered sugar, because just kind of like cinnamon and whatnot, the butterfly pea powder doesn't really like to mix in right away. So here we go. And again, I like to use a fork to mix things because I feel like it goes together much better.
You got a question. Butterfly peas, is that what it is?
Yes, it's a butterfly pea powder. I'm gonna show you up close. I've got the blueberry and the raspberry from this as well, and the dragon fruit. They're all really great. It has a very mellow flavor, but it adds a great pop of color. And this, we put the vanilla in it, so it'll really just have a vanilla flavor to it. But just look how rich this color is. And it will be just really gorgeous on our donuts. And so now I added a 1/2 cup of powdered sugar. Now I'm gonna add in the other half. And we're gonna mix this up until we've got a nice kind of paste about the consistency of Elmer's glue. Now, if you always add a bit too much powdered sugar, you can thin it out, but I always like to start with a little bit of liquid. Otherwise, you will be adding in a lot of sugar because powdered sugar dissolves very quickly. Okay, look at this. This is now pretty much mixed in. We've got a nice ooze on it, which is perfect. When the heat of it will help the powdered sugar melt even more, and it will ooze over. Beautiful. Okay, let's check and see how our donuts are looking over here, see if they need any longer to cook. They are just about perfect here, so I'm gonna slide my bowl back over here, and we'll take these guys off. Here's my fork. We'll take them off, then we'll fill them up for our next batch. We're gonna do a raspberry glaze next, and then we'll add in our next batch of donuts here. And then if you ever overfill it a little bit, you can just pull those little tags off. Where's my spray? We'll spray it down. And then we're gonna add in our next batch of our sourdough kind of vanilla cake donut mix. Just a nice, lovely spoonful. Now, if you're doing this in a donut pan where you bake in the oven, you will wanna put your donut mix in like either a piping bag or a Ziploc baggie where you cut off the end to it. That way you can pipe it around the circle. With this tray, it's gonna push it through the mold, so it'll give you that perfect donut shape. But for the donut trays, that is something you'll wanna do for a nicer looking donut. Slide this down, and let's dip these donuts. So you're just gonna go in with your donut, cover it up flip it over, and then the heat will allow it to ooze down around below it. So it doesn't take much work. And I will say my kids, their favorite part afterwards is just eating up all the glaze. But this is why you want to do it really hot, because it will ooze down. You can pick it up. There we go. But you see how beautiful this butterfly pea is? It just gives you such a lovely color without food coloring. It just is a natural. Okay, I'm gonna re-dip this one. I didn't get the side all the way on it. There we go. I'm gonna wash my hands. Okay. Let's give this a nice stir. You can see it's already starting to loosen up and really bring in those flavors. I'm gonna give, so we've got our chicken that we have on our nice spices with chipotle chili powder and taco seasoning and paprika.
You have a question? Where'd you get the donut maker?
The donut maker, I've had this one since college, which is like almost 20 years ago. Not quite, but almost. So I got it at Walmart, but they don't make this one anymore. But I've used another one that's exactly like it. It's the Betty Crocker mini donut maker. I have added it to my storefront. It works the exact same as it. It's a great one. I absolutely love it. Actually, I think it gives you a 6 donut on it instead of 5. But it is wonderful, and it's cheap. It's like $20. So you can check it out. I have the link to my Amazon storefront on my profile page, so you can look in there. I try to put all the kitchen gadgets I use there. So if you ever want to reference that, that's a great place to go. Okay, let's make our salsas real quick, then we'll whip up our next glaze, which is going to be a raspberry glaze. And it'll be delicious. We're going to use the raspberry freeze-dried powder, similar to the the butterfly pea. So for our tomato salsa here, we're just going to chop these up into nice little kind of small bits. And this is, we're pretty much a pretty big spice wuss in this family, so it's really just a pico de gallo. I'm going to turn off my peppers and onions since they are just about done. And we'll be making up our nachos here in just a second. So with salsas, you just want to make sure you don't have any big pieces that have a huge bit of skin on it. I'm making mine a chunky salsa. If you like more of that restaurant style salsa, just pop yours in a blender or a food processor, and you'll get that nice kind of fine tomato sauce based salsa. Okay. Almost done with our tomatoes. Just going over any big chunks. And I said, with salsa, you don't have to make perfect little dices on it. You can really do a rough cut on it because it's just going to be picked up and eaten on a chip. There's nothing necessarily beautiful about the individual slices. Okay, we're going to add this to our bowl here.
You have a question, how long you been going live?
We actually started this up in January, so we're going on about 6 months now. So I just kind of started it as a whim one day, and it's been a lot of fun. Okay, so we've got our diced up tomatoes in here. Let me give our chicken a quick stir. Okay, beautiful. This is really picking up all of those flavors. It's almost sucked up everything. Okay, I have some fresh cilantro from my garden here. So we're gonna dice this up, and I'm just gonna add this to my corn salsa because not everybody likes that. I love the corn salsa part, but not everybody likes it in their tomato salsa.
You have a question? Are you using leftover chicken?
This is rotisserie chicken that you can buy from Costco. So yes, it's about the same as leftover chicken, but Costco shredded it for me and not me.
The chat says Walmart also sells it.
Yeah, I think you can. I'm pretty sure if you look in like the deli aisle, like not the fancy deli area, but where they sell like the prepackaged sandwich meat, I'm pretty sure you can find shredded chicken there in different areas in most grocery stores. But it's a great time saver. I will say that it's really nice to have when you want to make a good meal without doing all the work. So I love that Costco offers that, and it's already pre-shredded for you, and they give you a pretty big pack. Okay, I've got my red onion here. We're gonna use part of it for each salsa. Red onions or white onions are great for salsas. Yellow onions, sweet onions are not so much. Those are better for cooking. So red onion has a very mild onion flavor. It's not super astringent, while white onions have a very, I want to say piquante taste. They've got a nice little sharp edge to it, but it works really well. I think one of those, a lot of people mistake with onions is they think all onions can be treated the same. Red onions are only ever really good eaten raw. Salads, burgers, in salsas. White onions, same, they work really great in salsas because they have that sharp little flavor to it. Versus yellow onions, Valdalia and sweet onions are better for sauteing or using when you're cooking. Okay, we're gonna check on our donuts here in just a second. Let me get our things diced up. I think our donuts still need a little bit longer, but we'll check them out. We're gonna put half of these in each one. And we'll have our salsas ready, and then we're gonna assemble our things. Let's check these out. Yeah, they're a little blonde still, so we're gonna let them cook for a little bit longer. I'm gonna wash my hands because I don't want onion flavors in my next glaze. And onion is one of those things where it follows you wherever you go. So for this one, we're gonna use some red raspberry powder, which is just raspberries that have been freeze-dried and powderized, so they'll give you a nice raspberry flavor without all of the work. We're gonna start with cream as our base. We're gonna probably put in about 2 tablespoons. And then we're gonna add in about a tablespoon of our raspberry powder. And it's got a really lovely kind of tart raspberry flavor to it. Let me grab a fork. You could also mix this with lemon. It works really well with lemon as well, but since we have a lemon glaze, we're just gonna keep this as raspberry. And it has such a pretty pink color. And we're just gonna mix this up. I always like to mix it up first before I add in my powdered sugar because it doesn't like to mix up on its own very well, and you don't want it to be clumpy. So the more we mix it, the deeper that pink will come out. It's starting mild, but it's just like our blue, the butterfly pea. It will get a little bit deeper as we mix it. There we go. And then I'm gonna add in my first bit of powder or sugar. We're gonna start with a half a cup here. And this is gonna cause it to dissolve a little bit more. We'll mix it in, and we'll deepen up our colors just a little bit more as well. There we go. Now we're starting to get that nice darker pink to it. And then I always do a half and half, and then we'll add in our other half of powdered sugar. So it's about a cup per glaze. You always want to make a little bit more than what you're going to use because of the way you dip them. If you don't have enough in there, it won't cover them very well. And then we're going to add in our last little bit of powdered sugar. We'll mix it up. And again, we're looking for about the consistency of Elmer's glue. It's going to look thicker at first, but powdered sugar dissolves really fast. So a little bit of water can take a whole lot of powdered sugar. So always start with less, and you can always add in more liquid later, but it's harder to take it out. Okay, look at our lovely pink glaze here. And it's got a nice little drizzle like Elmer's glue, which is perfect. Okay, we'll bring this over here for our dipping. So good. And let's check out on our donuts. See how they are looking. Oh, much better. Now they've got a nicer golden color to it. Okay, we're just gonna pull. But when you get something like this, that's because you overfilled it a little bit, but it's not ruined. You can just pull that part off, and then it will, didn't want to come with me. It'll look nicer. We'll get these donuts out and then we're gonna dip them after we get the next set in. Gives them a little bit of a second to cool up. There we go. Hey, there's a donut missing. You stole one of the lemon donuts.
Are you sure?
Steve. I know there was 5 donuts. See, can't trust the cameraman ever. I didn't even see him take it. He gets me when my back is turned. Let's spray this up. And I think we have enough to make 5 more in here. Again, this will make 12 of the big donuts, but I find the little donuts are better because you can have more variety with them. You can add sprinkles to these if you wanted to jazz them up even more.
Someone said quality control.
Yeah, He's taking his pop attacks. Okay, let's see. Get these last ones out. I'm gonna have to use my other spoon for that to really scrape it up. Don't want any to go to waste. And then we gotta assemble our nachos. Okay. But I will say, I've had this donut maker forever. I used to have it in my classroom all the time, and we used to make donuts in the classroom with the kids, and it was always like their favorite snack time. Okay, we're gonna let those cook up now. Let's dip our raspberry donuts. I'll slide this down here. I lost a piece of donut. It's in my lemon one. Let me take out the fork. And these are gonna give you just a pretty pink donut. And now you see how the ones that we made with just a cream base have a much richer color. That lemon thins it out, but it's gonna have a lot of flavor and sweetness on the lemons ones, but it's just not as strong and shiny. There we go. I'll dip that one a little bit more. There we go. Now let's assemble our nachos to go into the oven to start cooking up. And then we'll finish off the last bit of our salsas. We're gonna slide this out of the way. And we'll just add some garlic salt and lime juice to them. Okay, so we're gonna start with a base layer of tortilla chips, any of your choice. Just spread them out nice and thin. Because you want to have enough stuff on each one.
Some people thought you were gonna use the salsa for the donut.
It'll be a very interesting donut. Although I've seen some crazy flavors out there. I was in Portland once and I went to their famous voodoo donuts and they have a lot of crazy ones there. All delicious though. Okay, so we've got our base layer here. Just spread it out because you want to try to get every layer with the goodness things. Now what I like to do is we're going to do a layer of cheese, then we're going to put our toppings on, and then another layer of cheese. Because if you're having nachos, you want it to be cheesy goodness. I did line the bottom of my baking sheet with parchment paper. That's going to allow for a much easier cleanup. And you won't have to worry about the chips and the cheese sticking all the way to the pan. Okay, let's add on our fajita veggies. And kind of sprinkle them around. There we go. Get all those nice crispies. You want to get the nice char on your veggies when you do it, just like when you get, when you think about how fajitas come out of a skillet. That's what you want, like when they serve it on those big, beautiful skillets.
You have a question? Do you like beans with your nachos?
I am not a big bean fan. I have like 2 kids that love refried beans and that's about it. I never liked them, and so I do not put them on my things. I don't mind black beans, and sometimes I'll do like black beans with it, but I'm not a refried bean person. Which is funny because I don't even know where my kids got their love of refried, but my oldest daughter, she absolutely loves refried beans. We have to order an extra order at the restaurant when we go to like a Mexican place. Here we go. But we're gonna really load this chicken all the way around. And the good thing about it is this hot chicken is gonna start helping melt that under layer of cheese. And then we'll put a layer on top of it, and then we'll dress it up with our salsas and stuff at the end, and of course sour cream, because you can't have nachos without sour cream. And if I had thought ahead, which I never do when I'm planning out my meals, I would have had avocados to make guacamole, but again, I typically just go shopping in my kitchen and my refrigerators to find what I need. Now we're gonna take another layer of cheese and we're gonna put this over the top. And I have my oven preheated on the air fryer setting to 425. You want to nice it high and hot because you want that cheese to melt fast and bubble up quickly versus slow, because the longer it sits, the more likely you're gonna get soggy chips. So hot and high. We've got our cheese right here. Let's go put this baby in the oven. Say, I love nachos. I'm actually happy the girls are out to lunch with their grandmother because they're not big nacho fans, but the rest of the boys and I are.
You got a question? Who does the grocery shopping?
I do all the grocery shopping, and it's a lot because we're feeding about 9 people every single day. We fluctuate. Sometimes it's a little bit more or whatnot since it's our bunch of 7 plus my parents, but it's a lot of groceries. And it's and I will say, most people will be like, oh, you should plan out your meals. I'm terrible about planning out. I go to the grocery store and I buy the groceries that look good. And I'm like, oh, and then I figure out what I'm gonna make throughout the week about how I'm feeling. That works well for my family because it sounds crazy, but I have 4 full-size fridges. And no, I'm not crazy that I bought 4 full-size fridges at a time. I just accumulated them over the years. When we moved into our house 10 years ago, we brought a refrigerator with us, and then our house had this, and that was like our garage fridge at our old house. This house had this like really old, early 90s, maybe late 80s fridge. You know, the one with the freezer on top and the main on the bottom. So we got, we replaced that one with like a stainless steel one collection. We replaced everything off. And then when we remodeled our kitchen 2 years, our other one, our ice maker broke. And you're like, oh, I'll just go fix the ice maker. Well, the ice maker was gonna be almost $1,000 to fix, which is almost the cost of buying a new one. So we just bought another one and moved it out there. And now we are the crazy people with 4 fridges.
You have a question? Who does most of the cleanup?
My husband does. So my kids will wipe off the counters and they clean their plates. I will wipe off this area, but my husband does all the dishes. I put everything away because I'm the one cooking, so I want to know where it goes. But he does all the dishes and then puts the dishes away. We're gonna sprinkle a little bit of garlic salt over each one. If you like a little bit more spice, you can add in either some like jalapeno peppers or Tabasco sauce, but we're babies in this household, so we like it simple. Let's mix them up. So we just have a pico de gallo. It does have sweet peppers in it, but sweet peppers are red, so it's gonna look very red today. And we have red onions, so I'm just gonna call it the red salsa. And then we have our corn salsa, which is my favorite, which has, if you've ever had Chipotle's corn salsa, this tastes so much like it. It's so delicious. And it just adds a little flair. So we've got our 2 salsas. Let's check on our last set of donuts, see how they are looking. Ooh, almost. That last one needs a little bit more. It must have been a little underfilled, so we'll let that cook. Let me clear this area off. That way I can bring the donuts a little closer. And then in about a minute or 2, we can get our nachos out. Okay, let's slide this over here. It always gets so messy cleaning. Okay. I'm gonna bring, I'll put these right up here. Makes it easier because we'll do a little mix of our last ones. I'm feeling my husband wants lemon because he loves the lemon donuts. He, I don't think, will try the butterfly pea ones because they have the mention of the dreaded pea in it. But they don't taste like peas. Okay. Let's pull out. We're gonna pull out 4 of them because these 4 are done. This one will let cook a little bit longer. It's just a little bit lighter because I underfilled it, so it's not quite heating up at the top. But I'm just gonna flip it around in the donut maker so it can kind of crisp up the other side. So just like that. We'll let it cook for a little bit. Let me pull off these little extra tags on them and poke their little holes. So we'll do some lemons because that again is the favorite. So a lemon, and then we're gonna do pink. This is the raspberry made of our raspberry fruit powder.
You got a question? Your donuts are cake donuts with no yeast?
Yes, they are cake donuts. I did use my sourdough discard in them, which will give them, you know, all the nice health benefits of the sourdough, so it's kind of gut healthy. But they are just a plain vanilla cake donut. Now we're gonna drip one more, but this is what I love to do when I have some kind of matching colors here. Look at this. So we're gonna just take this and we can drizzle. Doesn't that look pretty? And give you a little flare on them. And then I'll do some of the blue on the pink. I'll leave the lemon plain because my husband he loves the plain lemon. But it's a way you can use your glazes in 2 different ways to give you just a really pretty
You have
donut.
a question? Do you ever make French onion soup?
I do make French onion soup. I absolutely love French onion soup. It is my favorite. And so I actually have a couple of videos of French onion soup on the link on our page. I made it back closer to the winter time, so look in like February and March. But I have 2 types on there. I have the classic, and then I have one where I made it with a herby pork meatball. So it's got a little bit more heft for a dinner, and it's so good. But yes, I love it. Let's grab our nachos out because I believe they should be nice and melted now. And then we'll serve up and we'll bedazzle them. Okay, let's see. Beautiful. So now see how we had our air fryer nice and hot? It melted up that cheese really quickly.
Oh, I think you had a question earlier. If you don't have the air fryer setting, what do you use?
Convection bake, if you have that one, at 425. It's essentially the same thing as an air fryer. It twists that air around in the oven so it spreads it out and cooks it a little hotter. If you don't have a convection bake, you can just do a regular bake, but at 450, just make it a little bit hotter. And it should roast up. Luckily, this is something that's nice and quick. You do want your oven to be preheated, so already hot when you put it in. Otherwise, again, it will sit longer. But look at our gorgeous nachos here. Aren't they just beautiful? And then we're gonna dress them up. I'm only gonna dress one side up with all the bougie salsas because we've got a couple plain Janes here that like it plain. But we've gotta make it nice and bougie, at least for me and Torrin. So we'll dress it up, plus we'll have extra, you can dip it in and take some extra on it. So we've got our tomato salsa going on. And then we're gonna put our corn salsa on top. And then we'll top it with a dollop of sour cream, which I absolutely love. So let me grab my sour cream. But again, look, you just see that melted cheese is just oozed in between and it's so delicious. And then we'll have a couple dollops of sour cream. If you don't have sour cream at home, you can take cream and lemon juice or lime juice, and you can make a lovely cilantro creme fraiche with it. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Let's also, before we do, let's check out our donuts again. So before those who come in late, we've got our sourdough discard donuts. So they all have a vanilla base. Our deep blue ones here have the butterfly pea and vanilla glaze on them with powdered sugar. These light pale ones right here have our lemon glaze on it. These pink ones are our raspberry glaze with raspberry powder, and then we made some bougie individual ones. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, show you what we're making for our family, and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page, so if you ever want to recreate any of our recipes at home, you can just go to that link, search for the title of what we're cooking, like French onion soup or whatnot, and you can check that video out and watch along with me again. We also have our Amazon storefront, so if you saw anything that we cooked with, so I've got our trays in there, I have another version of this donut maker, the Betty Crocker one, which is, I've used it before and they about the exact same. That is all in my Amazon storefront if you want to check it out. I do make a small commission off of it, but again, that just helps us out, but I just like to show you what we're using here. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe.